If you want to get your personality back and feel like the main character in your life again, then you need to realize that it's time for you to consume less and start creating more. And I'm not talking about being an inherently creative person. You do not have to paint or write poetry. What I am talking about today is the fact that you need to stop being a passive consumer. You need to stop rotting your brain and your life away by scrolling on your phone, and you need to step into actively creating your consciousness, your life, and who you are day in and day out. And I am going to be giving you the tools so that you know how to do this in your own life today. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of To Be Known. If you're new here, my name is Makayla Morman, and I am your go-to girl when it comes to anything personal development related in your 20s. I am quite literally obsessed with this stuff. I talk about it every single week here on the podcast. And today we are going to be talking about something that has been a North Star for me for the past, year or so. At the beginning of 2025, I came across this idea of creation over consumption, and it has changed my life. I feel such a great sense of satisfaction, fulfillment, and confidence ever since I started making the shift within myself to consume less and start creating more. And don't get me wrong, I still have my days where I scroll on my phone, but I am so much more mindful about the ways that I do consume versus the ways that I create my own life. And we are going to be talking all about it here today. By the end of today's episode, you are going to understand this line between living and numbing out in your life, as well as some ways that you can actively start living and creating in your own life. This is not complicated stuff. This is just something that is very important for you to understand if you really do want to have your personality back. If you really do want to feel like the main character in your life, you need to be able to understand when it is that you are actively living and participating and creating your life versus when you are numbing out, when you are being passive, when you are being consumed by life. There's a very clear distinction between these two things. This idea of consumption is going to be coming up a lot in today's episode, and I want you to understand what I mean when I am talking about consumption. Consumption is anything you do to avoid feeling present in your life. Now, consumption can look like scrolling on your phone. It could look like watching TV. It can look like watching YouTube. It can look like reading books upon books upon books. It can look like relationships that you might be in that you use to avoid being present in your own life, to dealing with yourself. Consumption can also look like productivity. It could look like busyness. It could look like your workload, the information that you digest, or maybe the confirmation or validation that you get from other people. And consumption can also look like consuming self-help content like this one and never actually applying it to your life because you want to feel like you are being productive in some way. Intrinsically, you know what consumption feels like when it is detrimental to your life, to your mind, to your psyche, to your body. Consumption can also look like drinking alcohol or using drugs. You know what negative consumption can look like because consumption isn't inherently bad, but it is bad when you use it to avoid your life. And when you are trying to get your personality back, when you are trying to feel like yourself again, you have to be very aware of the ways in which you do consume that have a net negative effect on your life. This idea of consuming less is not about being extreme. It's not about quitting social media or being anti-technology or going sober. It is about you choosing how you want to consume and how you want to show up in your life. This idea about consuming less is about seeing who is in control. Is it you or is it the thing that you are consuming? It's not about consuming less. It's about creating more consciousness for yourself. When we are living in this mode of consumption, when we are passively letting our lives float by as we scroll on our phones, I think we could spend a lot of time trying to figure out how we can consume self-worth, how we can feel like we are living our lives to the best of our abilities without actually putting ourselves out there. Because confidence doesn't come from what you read. Fulfillment does not come from what you absorb. It comes from you actively showing up for yourself day in and day out. You do not find self-worth by watching someone else's life. You find it by creating your own, because a life that is fulfilling isn't something that you watch. It's something that you make for yourself, because creation is the source of fulfillment at the end of the day. Remember what I said at the beginning of this episode. Creation is not about being artistic. Think about the times where you go and you travel, or you go and have new experiences, and you're actively creating something new for yourself. Think about how fulfilling those moments are for yourself, because creating can look like creating memories. It can look like creating meaning in your life. It can look like creating a routine that actually supports you. It can look like creating ways of thinking that feel aligned with who you are and who you want to be. It looks like creating moments of presence with yourself and with the other people in your life, because that is how you will have a fulfilling, meaningful life. This is how you will get your personality back. This is how you will feel like the main character in your life. It's because you realize that you are actively creating your consciousness. You are actively creating your life. And if you are going to let yourself be consumed, if you are going to consume scrolling on your phone day in and day out, you will create nothing for yourself. All you will do is waste your time, waste your life, waste your consciousness, and you'll look at yourself later down the line, in a week, in a month, in a year, in 10 years from now, wishing that you spent more time creating rather than being consumed by life. Creation is where self-trust is built. Every single time that you create something for yourself, anything, you are telling yourself, I can rely on me, because you showed up, you did the work, you created the consciousness, you created your memories, you created a new neural pathway for yourself by creating a new way of thinking, by learning something new, by trying something, by going back to something that once made you happy. You are tapping into your consciousness and creating your personality again. You are creating your life again, and you are becoming the main character when you are watching other people be the main characters in their own life if you were just scrolling on your phone day in and day out. But remember, consumption is anything that you use to avoid being present in your life. It can look like overloading yourself with work and not making new memories. It can look like saying no when really you should say yes, because you're just trying to avoid an experience or a person or a place or a thing. You need to realize what it is that you are doing that is making you avoid being present in your life, and say yes to it and allow yourself to create something new. Creating a better consciousness for yourself is not about the aesthetics. It's not about posting what you are doing online. It is about doing things for you, purely for the sake of the experience. Creation looks like choosing presence over distraction, responding instead of reacting, interrupting the autopilot of your life, and letting yourself feel instead of numbing out. I know you want to get your personality back and feel like the main character again, but you do not need to reinvent your life. You just need to re-inhabit it. That's all you need to do. All you need to do is show up and be active and stop being passive in your day to day. So now that we got all of that handled and we talked about what this idea of consumption to creation can mean for yourself, now it's time for me to actually give you some tips and ways that you can get back to your personality, that you can feel like the main character again, from switching from this idea of consuming less to creating more. And one of those things is going back to the things that made you happy when you were a kid and having some play dates with yourself. Maybe when you were a kid, you liked reading books. Maybe you liked doing paint by numbers or Lego blocks. Maybe you loved going to the grocery store and getting a box of, cupcakes or cookies and making it at home. Whatever it is that you liked doing when you were a kid, go back to it. Give yourself 20 to 40 minutes a day, a week. I don't care, but make it consistent and allow yourself to have a little play date with your inner child. This is so important that I feel like we lose so much of this as we get older, because we just get so used to our routines. We get so used to the mundane. We get so used to the responsibilities that we have on our plate that we look back at our childhoods and we're in wonder of how we were able to feel so present and so alive in our lives. And it's because we allowed ourselves to create something for ourselves every single day. We allowed ourselves to play. We allowed ourselves to have fun without thinking about the result. So give yourself that opportunity to play. Maybe it looks like puzzles or doing a coloring book, but what I recommend that I think is a lot easier than if you don't have 20 to 40 minutes a week or a day to dedicate for yourself, listen to the music that you listened to when you were a kid that made you smile, that made you happy. I mean, for me, it's Hannah Montana, it's One Direction, it's young Justin Bieber. It is all of the music from the early 2000s through like the early 2010s that makes me feel so alive. It makes me so happy when I go back and listen to that because I think about all of the little memories, that little version of me made to all of these songs. And it brings a lot of play and wonder back into our lives because we are trying to thaw out this inner child that we have in ourselves when we are wanting to get our personality back, when we are wanting to feel like the main character in our lives again. Go back to that sense of play and childlike wonder that you had and watch your personality come back. Another way that you can start consuming less and creating more is by going on unproductive side quests. Now, this can look like a myriad of things, one of them being learning something completely weird and random, either a niche skill or hobby or thing to be knowledgeable about. Like it can literally be you learning how to juggle, you learning about all of the different clouds there are and being able to name them whenever you see them in the sky or the constellations in the sky. Like it can be so random, but something where people, when they meet you on first glance, they might not know that you would know this thing. It might seem completely random and completely unlike you, but it is just your little weird niche thing that you know how to do, that you know that makes you different, that brings about this like childlike wonder and whimsy because learning something weird and random and allowing that to be a part of your personality, a part of like your character development, even though you might be 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, it just seems so fun and it feels like a more intentional way of using your time rather than being consumed by life. You dedicate yourself to learning something new. I just feel like there are so many random things that we can learn how to do or just random little tidbits of information that we can have in our brain that make us feel so unique and so like ourselves that maybe younger kid version of us was once curious about that we forgot about or wanted to learn but never did. And when you bring back that childlike wonder and that whimsy to yourself for you to learn something completely random, no matter how old you are, 20, 30, 40, 50. There's so many random things that you can learn that you could add into your life and into your character development that can really help you feel like you are gaining your personality back, like you are feeling like the main character in your life again, because you're using the time that you once did to consume to actively create something new for yourself, whether it's gaining that new piece of knowledge, like learning the constellations in the sky, or gaining a new skill like juggling. Some other unproductive side quests that you can add to your life are trying to visit certain locations in your city, like trying to go to every single coffee shop in your city, or trying to go to every single museum or every single thrift store in your city, and then expanding to maybe the city next door to you or whatever it is. Like you can go on a hunt and try to experience all these different things and create a journal for yourself of what you thought of all of the places and make it a fun hobby for yourself to go experiment and try and have a little sense of curiosity for your local area. And in turn, that helps you have some more curiosity for yourself and for your life. Another side quest that you could go on where you never even leave your own home but feel like you are traveling the world is making one cuisine from a different country every single month. Now, there are so many countries in the world. I don't know how many countries there are, but I know that you can figure out one random country and create a dish from that cuisine in your home. It will probably be a complete mess, a complete disaster, but it will make you feel like you are trying new things. It'll bring you a little bit of sense of culture and connectedness to things that are outside of your norm and allowing you to create new memories for yourself. Maybe this is something where you invite your friends or family over to enjoy the cuisine that you ended up making that month. But I don't know, I just feel like this is a random thing that you can add into your life that creates a lot of wonder and allows you to feel connected to something larger than yourself, even though you're in the confines of your own home, just making some food. The last thing that I have for you as an unproductive side quest is creating a list of things that make you feel curious rather than a to-do list. And what I did with this curiosity list that I created is I made 52 things that I want to do over the course of 52 weeks, which is a year, and I have dedicated myself to making sure I am doing one of them a week. Now, this list just looks like a bunch of random stuff. Coffee shops I want to go to, restaurants, bars. It looks like random activities or classes that I want to try, hikes that I want to go on, random things that I want to do that I just haven't had the time to do and I'm curious about them. I wrote all of them down on this list, and I am making sure that I'm crossing off one a week. And they can be high effort items, they can be low effort items where you leave the house or maybe you don't leave the house. There's so many random things that we can feel curious about wanting to do that we can forget about on the day-to-day, that having a list like this that I can go back and refer to is something that has really helped me sort of create this random side quest for myself. When you are wanting to consume less and create more, you really have to think about a way to replace your screen time or create rules around it. And that is sort of the last big tip that I am going to be giving you here today. When you are wanting to make the switch from consuming to creating, you have to do exactly that. And the last tip that I am going to be leaving with you here today is making sure that you are creating rules and guidelines for yourself when it does come to screen time. When you are wanting to make the switch from consuming to creating, you have to do exactly that. And the last tip that I am going to be giving you guys today is quite possibly the most important, and it is creating more than you consume, which looks like having some rules around your screen time. What this might look like in action is making sure that before you scroll, you are doing something that makes you connect with yourself, makes you connect with the other people in your life or with the world around you before you actually allow yourself to open up Instagram, to open up TikTok, to open up your work email and do one of the following. Maybe it's that you take a moment to text one of your friends or to call a loved one before you doom scroll for a couple of hours. Maybe it looks like writing down one paragraph in a journal about how you are feeling. Maybe it looks like going outside and standing in the sun or the rain or the snow for 5 minutes before you allow yourself to scroll. Maybe it looks like making sure that you are putting your phone in the other room so that you can be more present in your life. Maybe, just maybe, at the end of the night, before you do your nightly little scroll for however long, you make sure that you stretch on the ground for at least 5 to 10 minutes, or do an ab workout, or do an arm workout, or go on a little walk outside. Whatever it is, make sure that you are pairing and habit stacking a productive habit before you allow yourself to go on your phone and scroll and consume whatever media it is that you are going to consume. When you habit stack these things together, when you have a very conditional way that you allow yourself, like a barrier to entry before you are allowed to scroll on your phone at any time of day, whether it's morning, middle of the day, or night, when you have that barrier to entry, it is going to make you realize all of the other things that you can do with your time rather than scrolling on your phone. And it is going to make you a much more present and productive person in your life. You will feel so much more present when you see all of the other things that you can do instead of scrolling on your phone. And habit stacking is one of the best ways for you to do it. When you make these rules around screen time for yourself, it is not about punishment. Remember, it is about making sure that you know who is in control. Is it you, or is it the thing that you are consuming? Because when you scroll and scroll and scroll and you can't pull yourself out of it, that is you being consumed by social media. That is you being controlled by your phone. No one wants to be controlled by their phones. We all want to have control and autonomy over our life. And this is you doing that in action. What all of these things that we've talked about today have in common is that it is making sure that you are switching from passively living your life to actively creating it for yourself. The through line with all of these things that we've talked about today is making sure that you know that you are living in an active mode rather than a passive one. And when we are living passively, when we are numbing ourselves out, when we feel like we are void of any personality or main character energy in our life, it means that we're living passively. It means that we are stuck in a mode of watching, of absorbing, of comparing, of waiting, when in actuality, what you need to do is step into your life and live actively. This means that you are actively choosing, you are actively engaging, you are actively creating, you are actively experimenting and participating in your life. This idea of creating our lives rather than being consumed by them does not mean that you need to do more. You just need to stop watching your life and actually step into it, because that's when your personality comes back. That's when you feel like the main character in your life again. And that is when you are actively creating your consciousness, creating your life instead of being controlled by it all. The most important thing that creation does for us is it helps us build our identity, because when we are stuck in this mode of consumption, what we are doing is putting our identity outside of ourselves. We are looking out there, trying to figure out who we are, what life we should build for ourselves, instead of creating it ourselves. When we create our lives, when we create our consciousness, we are taking back that power. We are building our identity from the inside out. When you create, you stop outsourcing your sense of self. You start to take your power back through your hobbies, through your consciousness, through your thinking. You start to see that the memories you make for yourself by being present, the rituals, the experiences, the ways of just being present in your life, it allows you to have that sense of worth, to have that sense of fulfillment, to have that identity that feels so true and honest to you that nothing else matters. All of these things that I've talked about today, these are the things that make our lives feel full. And that is the most important thing that you can do, is to have a life that feels very full to yourself, because we don't need to be on this earth to impress other people with whatever it is that we're going to post on social media, whatever accolades that we're going to achieve. What we need to do to actually have true success, to feel like ourselves, to have our personality, to feel like our life is worth meaning, is not to be impressive, but is to just be ourselves and to figure out what that means for us. My goal for you after you end this episode is I want you to notice what makes you feel present and what makes you feel like you are avoiding your life. Because once you have this little bug inside your brain, you will never look at your life the same. Remember, self-worth, self-identity, and just fulfillment does not come from what you consume. It comes from what you create. With all of that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. This was a topic that was very near and dear to my heart, because this idea of consuming less and creating more has really been a North Star for me, as I said earlier in the episode. And I know that if it's helped me, it can help you. And I hope that it did. And if you really liked today's episode, please let me know in the comments what inspires you from today's episode, what you feel inspired to create, what you feel inspired to do out of all the tips that I gave you today. Please let me know. I love hearing you guys in the comments so much. And if you really liked today's episode, please give me a thumbs up. If you are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you are listening on Spotify, please give this podcast a 5-star review and follow on there as well. And if you really want to follow along the To Be Known journey, follow on Instagram and TikTok at To Be Known Pod. The links will always be in the show notes below. And with all that being said, stay true to you. Bye.